regular challenges. I heard a couple of them. I think, I don't remember who it was, Steve, who said hair on fire. So yeah, your hair on fire events that are going to happen. The next are going to be other people. Sometimes people don't want to cross the line, and they may not want you to cross the line either, for whatever reason that is. And the last is going to be your own self-doubt, right? Just like everyone else, I sometimes get up there and say, am I a fraud? Am I an imposter? Gosh, even things like financial advising, where Tim, you mentioned all those designations, there'll be times where a client will ask me something and I'll really say to myself, I don't know that I know the idea. And I feel like if I don't have the answer here, we're going to have a problem. But what I want you to think about is whether those challenges are just the normal challenges, they're other people, or they're your own self-doubt. What happens is as these start to stack up, that line looks like a wall, okay? And when you see that wall, sometimes you just say to yourself, you know what? I just don't have the strength to try and go through this. And what you do is you just throw your hands up, okay? And we decide, okay, I guess I'm just not going to get across the line for those better results, better relationships, more opportunities. Next slide. And so what obstacles are you going to hit? And this is super important because whenever I coached that high school team that Tim mentioned, I would always start our season. Now realize I'm dealing with high school kids, right? So there's nothing harder to work with than a 15 through 17-year-old boy. I don't remember being like that myself, but clearly my father has said that I was that same person that I've been coaching. But what we would do is we would start off the beginning of the season and go through what might go wrong. And now take that to my adult life. And when I started to be a financial advisor, what I would do before I had a big meeting or a prospective meeting for a prospective client is I would sit there and role play in a conference room with one of my colleagues. And I would say, bring your best shot at me. I'm going to pitch you like I would the client. And I want you to throw every objection you can think of. Don't be soft on me. And so what happened was some of those objections I nailed and I answered well. Some of them, for lack of a better phrase, I sucked and I needed to go back and do it again. But at the end of the day, it really got me ready and confident for those meetings because then I knew, okay, bring it on, whatever you're going to bring on, I've got. Well, it was interesting because at the University of Virginia soccer, we did the same thing and we called it situational analysis or situational play. Here's how that works in soccer. And forgive me if you're not a soccer person, but I think you'll still get the example. So coach would divide us into teams and he would say, okay, starters, you're on this team. Everyone else, you're on this team. Starters, we're going to pretend like you are down a goal with 10 minutes left. Okay, that's the situation. Down a goal, 10 minutes left, go. And so what we would do is you're throwing everything forward because you have nothing to lose because you're already losing 1-0. You're just desperately trying to get that goal back. Then he would stop it and he would say, okay, now we're going to switch it. There's 10 minutes left in the game and you're up a goal. So what are we doing now? We are defending. We're getting everyone behind the ball. We're not making stupid decisions. If we're not sure what we're going to do, we're just going to knock the heck out of the ball and send it over the top. He then stopped and he would say, okay, now next 20 minutes, starters, pretend like you're down a player because someone got ejected and they got a red card. So now you're playing minus a player. And then you would go through that. And you could probably start to understand what I'm talking about here. Is the reason that you do that is because those obstacles are going to come up. Guaranteed 100%, one of these things is going to happen. And what you want as a coach and what you want as a player is when they come up that you don't, again, for lack of a better phrase, freak out. Is that a technical enough term, freak out? Everyone understands that? Right, okay. So you don't freak out. And it's like, okay, there's 10 minutes left. We're down a goal. We've been here before. We know exactly what to do. No panic, no emotion. Let's go, right? Same thing if you're upper goal. And what happens is you don't want to start having the initial conversation of what you will do to get past that obstacle at the time that obstacle is there. Why? Because that's when you're most emotional and you're not thinking straight. Okay, you want to be on autopilot so that when it hits, you're ready to rock. It's so important that you find a way to get past these obstacles because, next slide, these obstacles of today are lessons of tomorrow. Think about that. The things that happen today, those obstacles, not only are they lessons for the immediate right then and there, but for the future. Let me give you two examples. So my daughter, who's now 16, when she was 10 years old, we were on a work retreat. And it was for families, and the families all went, and they had these family events, and we were in California, and one of the events was to ride bicycles that they had for us over the Golden Gate Bridge to the other side. You get to the other side of the Golden Gate Bridge, and there's a restaurant there, and everyone gets to go to the restaurant. You're following me? You've got the visual? Okay. So my daughter decides she does not want to be on a tandem bike at 10 years old. She wants to do it on her own. And there's no way in hell that she's going to the other side without being on a bike by herself. So just like I do with her mom, I acquiesced and said, okay, and we got on the bike. Well, I wonder, anyone in this room ever ridden a bike over the Golden Gate Bridge? Well, let me help you understand what's going on here. You're going over, it's not like a wide area for the pedestrians, so you have people coming the other way. Of course, I didn't realize this until we got maybe about half of the way, that my daughter couldn't quite reach the brakes because the brakes were hand brakes. It was not a problem when we were going up because there wasn't a lot of braking, but it's a huge problem going down. So of course, we're going down. What happens? A jogger comes, she changes the direction of the bicycle, goes flying off, scrapes her knee, bloody, all over the place. Not to mention, I can't stand the sight of blood. That's a story for another day, maybe a couple of glasses of wine. But all of a sudden now I'm dealing with this. So now after we got done with this, realized the rest of the group is already at the restaurant and they're probably already into the appetizer. The security was with us because they were bringing up the rear and they radioed ahead what was going on. We get to the restaurant, my daughter is still crying and I'm like, oh God, what are we gonna do? So I just put on my best coaching impersonation and I said, Samantha, you've got two choices here. You're either gonna walk in that room and cry, okay, and that's gonna be your memory of it, okay, or you're gonna put a smile on your face as if you're not even fazed. I go, it's your choice, you decide what to do. I know what I would do, so a little the guilt going on there. She goes in and with a smile on her face, everyone, because we had the whole restaurant, stood up and is clapping and cheering for her, right? So the lesson that she learned is that when she gets past those obstacles, she learned a lesson. And now when she's 16 and getting her head handed to her by whatever boy she got mad at or a teacher she's not happy with, or if anyone has any teenagers, you know what I'm talking about. That's what was going on in her head. I've been here before. I've had obstacles. I can get past it. You don't want to hear Tom Henske family story? How about Michael Jordan, right? Michael Jordan and his famous The Flu Game. The flu game in 1997 in the finals against the Jazz. You remember he had that towel over his head. He was on the bench. It was one of the most famous sports stories ever, probably in the history of sports, not just basketball, but sports. He scored 38 points. They wound up winning. They went on, they won the championship. So if you're going to be successful, you're going to have obstacles because you're setting your goals high every year. I know when I was in a sales organization, I felt like every year it's getting harder to do, the bigger quota or whatever it is that you call it, right? And all high performers think of hurdles as serving this greater purpose or a necessary evil to make them stronger, okay? By the way, super, super important, which is why I love the theme today, is high achievers surround themselves with supportive people. And high achievers really manage their self-talk to make sure they're not talking themselves out of hitting the levels that they want to hit. Okay? So the next slide, please. Okay, so here are the obstacles that you're used to hitting. We mentioned challenges before, right? We mentioned the people. You know, sometimes they're just people that are less than supportive, enthusiastic, let's call it. Is that a nice way to be, just be nice about it? Right, okay? And they're just people that are not really inspiring us, okay? You need to be able to get past those people and realize I am not going to flourish sitting in an environment like that. Okay, and remove yourself or get that person to change. That's easier said than done. But the big thing is also the work. I guarantee that there is not anything worth it in life that doesn't take work. And I don't mean here in your job. Okay, yes, here in your job, of course, but at home with, you know, for me, with my wife, with my kids, with my parents, right, with my friends, anything that's worth it is going to take work. And if you think that you're going to attain all these great things in life without putting in the work, okay, I'm betting that it's going to be the exception, not the rule.